In today's video, I'm reviewing the Viltrox 75mm f1.2 Pro autofocus lens for Fuji X mount. But does it live up to the hype? And is it really good enough for pro shooters? Stay tuned to find out. What's up everyone, Pete Coco here, and thank you for joining me as always. Now don't forget to like, comment, and make sure you subscribe to my channel, because as the channel grows, I'm able to do more and more videos like this one. Don't forget to download my free PDF for 5 portrait tips, which is linked in the description below, and visit my sponsors while you are there. I'd like to thank my friends at B&H Photo for loaning me a copy of the Viltrox 7512 for this review. And if you find my review helpful, I would greatly appreciate if you use one of my links to purchase your own. First, let's talk about the build quality and the handling. The Viltrox 75mm 1.2 autofocus lens is the first in their high-end Pro Series line, and it's clear from opening the box that this lens means business. It's all metal, it feels extremely well made, with a smooth focusing barrel and an aperture ring that has just the right amount of resistance to click into place without feeling cumbersome. The lens is not small and it has a good amount of weight to it, but nonetheless it feels really comfortable in the hand. I found it to be an excellent size and weight for portraiture both in my studio and on location. I really like the way this lens pairs with the X-T5, not only aesthetically, but more importantly, it balances nicely with the camera, making it a true pleasure to use. The aperture ring is located intuitively, as is the focusing ring, and both are large enough to make them easy to find without having to search with your fingers while you're looking through the viewfinder. The lens also features water and dust proofing with a number of gaskets located throughout the body of the lens and on the mount. Viltrox calls it a, quote, professional level waterproof and dustproof design. The lens hood is a hard plastic and matches the quality of the lens itself. Overall, the 75mm is made extremely well and even features a Pro badge that's etched into the metal barrel, which is a nice touch that actually enhances the premium nature of the lens. All right, let's talk about image quality. The 75mm features 16 lens elements in 11 groups with 4 high refractive index lenses and extra low dispersion glass. With a super fast maximum aperture of f1.2, the 75 is ideal for portrait photography as well as low light applications. Now, throughout a week of testing with this lens, I was extremely impressed with the image quality in a variety of different lighting conditions and situations. I first tested the 75 at my studio using a number of different lighting setups. In this image of my photographer friend Alex, I used a parallel light setup and I shot wide open at f1.2. I was really blown away not only by the overall sharpness, even wide open, but also by how well the Viltrox handles the X-T5's 40 megapixel sensor. There's a ton of detail, excellent color rendition, and great contrast without any muddiness or processed look, which I know some people have complained about when using Fuji's new 40 megapixel sensor. The image is clean, crisp, and quite impressive. In this next image of my bandmate Jesse, I switched to a Rembrandt style light using a single Westcott flex panel, and again I shot wide open. The Viltrox is once again very sharp with excellent natural colors and a pleasing transition from lights to darks. The skin tones are really rendered quite nice, and the color is very pleasing without having to make any adjustments in post. This is direct from the camera. The next few shots mixed LEDs and flash and were inspired by a Manny Ortiz tutorial that I had watched recently. This particular technique required me to focus on my subject, fire, and then drag the shutter. And here, the lens also performed extremely well. I was impressed with how well the autofocus kept up, even though it was very dark in my studio. But more on autofocus later. These images, like the others, were crisp, sharp, and rendered with a ton of detail, even though I was dragging the shutter and using second curtain flash sync. Now, for this last shot from my studio, I used one hard light set very close to the subject. Check out the detail in his sunglasses where you can see a reflection of my nan light. As before, the image is extremely sharp with all the detail that you could ever want. And I was also happy with how well this image handled my editing process, which crushed the blacks quite a bit. Next, I took the Viltrox 75 with me to a gig at a bar in Astoria in order to capture some concert photos in low light. And this particular bar had very little in the way of stage lighting, so it was the perfect challenge for the lens. I shot my preferred Acros Plus G filter film simulation, and I was easily able to capture images that looked like they were produced with a much more expensive lens. When shooting at ISO 3200, 400, and even above, I was able to create excellent results with acceptable grain. I also shot some portraits outside of the bar, including this one at ISO 12800. Check out the pleasing bokeh the Viltrox produces, along with the nice skin tones and color throughout, even at this very high ISO. Finally, I took the X-T5 and Viltrox 75 with me on a family outing and took a bunch of portraits of my kids. The 112.5mm full-frame focal length equivalent begs you to take portraits, and as this is a portrait lens through and through, here is where the lens really shines. As with my other shooting situations, the sharpness and overall detail really impressed me. But what I loved the most about it was actually the beautiful colors, accurate and pleasing skin tones, and really nice contrast. Portrait photographers will absolutely love the pleasing and natural bokeh, and as someone who loves to shoot wide open, this lens really hits the spot for me. Now, regarding image quality, this is one of the best lenses that I've tested so far, and it certainly rivals the quality that I get with my Fujifilm lenses. Okay, let's talk about autofocus. I upgraded the firmware to version 1.0.2 after my studio session, and there was a noticeable difference in the autofocus performance. I thought that the AF was good to begin with, so having a slight bump in performance was really nice. One thing I really appreciate is how quiet the lens is. The STM motor is fast and almost silent, and when using it with eye tracking, I was able to achieve excellent and consistent results with the X-T5. When using the camera in single shot focus mode, I did notice that the AF is a bit snappier than when in AFC. So if you prefer to use continual autofocus as I do, the lens can sometimes maybe feel a touch sluggish. There was never a time, however, that using the 75 felt like the AF speed was impeding my ability to get the job done. In my studio, where most of the ambient lights were turned off, the lens easily tackled my subject's eyes, even when it was obscured in shadow. Again, when shooting a dim stage, the lens did not hunt for faces and easily locked onto the subjects who were lit by a very minimalist stage lighting. Shooting in this terrible, poor lighting condition was really no problem at all. Outside in the daytime, pretty much all but a handful of shots I took were in perfect focus, even when shooting wide open. I also had my son do the Jordan Drake style running test, and here I had one image out of the series that was not in focus while shooting in AFC with release priority enabled. I also took some backlit portraits with the sun, and this again didn't create any problems for the AF system. As with the image quality and build quality, the autofocus speed and accuracy here functions like it's from a much more expensive lens. Okay, so are there any downsides to the Viltrox? Well, until now, I've obviously been singing its praises with good reason. I have, however, found one area where the lens maybe falls short. When shooting with the sun directly behind my subject, there was quite a bit of flaring. Although the lens had no trouble focusing and even tracking my subject, I was a bit surprised by how much flare I got in some of the photos. Now, I purposely gave the lens a very difficult lighting situation here, and the sun was peeking through my garage and all of that. So take this with a grain of salt, but there it is. All right, so outside of some of the flaring when shooting in direct sunlight, I really can't find anything negative to say about this lens. In fact, from the moment I put it on my camera, I really fell in love with it. It doesn't feel like a third-party lens, and it really felt like I was shooting with a much more expensive Fujifilm lens in terms of the design, the performance, and most importantly, the awesome image quality. I think that Viltrox has hit an absolute home run with this lens, and for those of us who shoot with Fujifilm cameras, this is a very exciting lens in terms of the focal length and the image quality and the performance. Using the Viltrox 75 1.2 does not feel at all like a compromise, and for me, this lens represents really the best value for your dollar in terms of a super fast portrait lens. I have no reservations giving this lens my full recommendation, and as I said, it's a true home run. Well, that's all I have for you today. If you found this review to be helpful and you decide to purchase your own 75mm 1.2, I would greatly appreciate it if you use one of the links in the description below. Thank you again to my friends at B&H Photo for loaning me this 75mm to try out. And don't forget to visit my B&H gear store linked below to see all of the equipment I use in my photo studio and my YouTube studio. Please subscribe to the channel if you have enjoyed this video. Hit that like button and also leave me a comment below while you are there. Here's wishing you an amazing day. Go out and take some awesome photos today, and I will see you next time. Peace.